Okay, ready?
Ready.
Born ready.
This thing.
Welcome back to another episode of After Hours at Blondie's, and we have a very special guest today that I'm excited to announce and introduce you to, Nitecraft.
Thank you
welcome
kindly, guys.
Welcome in.
Happy to be here.
And we've got Mazen. Mazen, welcome in. Welcome. How are you?
Handsome.
How are you?
Wonderful.
How are we doing, everyone?
Fantastic.
how's
Great. It's a wonderful hump day.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Marvelous.
If people have been following us from the beginning, we've mentioned Gellert/Nightcraft probably every podcast. So,
At least
yeah.
every
So
single
this is
one.
a podcast famous guest.
Oh my god.
I was so nervous. I had to tinkle. Let's put it that way.
I shaved my balls for this, so let's just say I'm prepared.
We are prepared. We are slick. We are ready.
Me too.
You too.
I
Excellent.
actually shaved for once.
Yeah.
Oh, spiffied up just for the I'm honored.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take it all the way back to the very first time that you laid your eyes, your ears, your sounds, your heart on music. Do you remember the very first time that you're like, wow, music is that thing for me. Music is that magical little thing that I need in my life.
I like sounds. Yep. We're definitely going way back with this
Way
one.
back,
But
yes.
yeah, definitely. I would say up until I was like 10 years old, I didn't really listen to music. My parents would always listen to music in the car. You know, we'd listen to stuff, and they would listen to like the Beatles, ZZ Top, like Queen, this kind of stuff. And like I always just hear it, but it didn't like hit me. You know, I wasn't like, I want to go home and now listen to this. And I mean, I learned some of those songs like, you know, word for word. I could probably even still sing them now,
Yeah.
but like.
The ones that stick with you forever,
Exactly.
right?
Well, when you're young,
Yeah.
you just learn it and you absorb
Your brain
it.
is
Your
just a
brain
sponge.
builds those synapses so fast. Anyway.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say I was like 10 or 11 when my cousin and my two cousins, female and my older one, they're visiting from Romania, and he brought a cassette tape with him and recorded off the radio, as they do over there, you know.
Yeah.
Recorded off the radio was a trance song, and it was the first trance song ever created by Armin van Buuren.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was called Blue Fear.
A little known
Yeah.
DJ, you might have heard of
You
him.
might have heard of him. He's been around, you know. He does
Not
a few
that
things,
big.
has a few. I don't know how
Doesn't
many
tour the
tens
world.
of yeah, how many tens of thousands of songs he's got now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
festivals he throws, and yeah. But yeah, so that was his like debut track that basically like launched his entire career. And yeah, I heard on the cassette tape, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's just this new DJ, Armin van Buuren. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, he's got this radio show called The State of Trance that airs every week. And I was like, okay, cool. So back then, we had LimeWire. We didn't have Spotify. We didn't have YouTube.
Good
We didn't
old
have
LimeWire.
SoundCloud. We didn't have any of this stuff.
Download a couple bugs with your song, you know, hand
All
in
the
hand.
time. Viruses were just a thing. Gotta format my computer again. But
Exactly.
but no, I started downloading his A State of Trance episode, and I think it was like episode 200 back then. So he'd been going for that would be 200 weeks. So he had been going for a few years at that point. But yeah, I just started downloading literally weekly at that point. And that was like the only gateway I had into electronic music because they weren't playing it anywhere on the radio here. There wasn't any sound of it, you know. Eminem was saying nobody's listening to techno. So electronic music was not really a thing. And like I think
No.
this was like 2001.
Yeah. So pop
Well, it
songs
was definitely
were
more
big.
underground for sure. Yeah.
It still
Yeah.
existed for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, if you knew where to look.
I mean, underground for Canada, for North America.
That's what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah, I should be clear about that. In North America, Vancouver specifically, in Europe, it was popping off. It was huge. Tiesto, Paul Van Dyke, like all these DJs were like getting their careers. And I mean, I would say electronic music started in like, 70s and 80s with disco, but then like trance and techno really took off in the late 80s, early 90s, and then moved on from there. But in North America, it was still brand new, very fresh.
Yeah, even here, like just a slight segue, in that period of time, the Twisted guys were throwing like trance underground raves at the Plaza of Nations and things like that. And those were legendary parties that I've been to a few of them because they're all my friends that I didn't listen to. I listened to hip hop and R&B.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to any of that stuff. So they would take me to these shows, and I would literally be the grumpiest, most annoyed person in the fucking building, and everybody's
What is this?
Everybody's having the best time, and it's like we're talking about people like there's like massage rooms and like rows of people sitting in their pajamas sucking on suckers and like fucking lasers everywhere and like people and just like the people, the way people dress, the way people like the drugs they were doing were just bonkers. Like pressed caps with everything inside them. It's like a cocktail.
Yeah.
And just the sights and sound, like there's like little inside the building there'd be like little stations, like this is the art exhibit, that is like where people do massages, and there's just a meditation area, and there's a sound bath here, and there's like, it's just all in the building.
Oh man,
it's like Base Coast in the building kind of, but way weirder. Way weirder.
Like imagine all these things now regular as human beings, but
like,
just so strange. Because
like it's almost like Dorothy and whatever the
Wizard of Oz.
No, not the Wizard of Oz. Sorry, what's the one with the Cheshire Cat and all that stuff?
Oh, Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. Imagine Alice in Wonderland, but the acid meter was cranked. Anyway, go ahead. So, but that was the kind of music they were playing. Was that Armin van Buuren's, all that stuff way back in the day, Tiesto and all those guys, like people that we think are like household names now. That was all like
they were brand spanking
new back then, and that's where. And I fucking hated it. But anyway,
and look at us now.
And most people did.
And look at us now.
No, that's a very good point. And I've heard about these like legendary Twisted parties when they were throwing them every weekend, huge raves, and like and back when Twisted was pretty much like the primary promo company in Vancouver.
Sure.
Blueprint wasn't anywhere for electronic music. Yeah, Blueprint was still up and coming, and so started with that, discovered A State of Trance, and then through that podcast, he would always mention other names like Marcus Schultz, Ferry Corsten, like this is the latest track from Tiesto or whatever. So like I would slowly learn these names through the podcast. Exactly. Yeah. And some episodes you just download the entire 1 hour, but some episodes you'd actually download all the songs were like separated. Whoever took the time to like actually separate track 1, track 2, track 3, and he would also write name and title in the track, so I'd actually know which track is which. So really valuable. And I could just pick and choose which one. If I didn't want to hear the whole mix, I could just listen to like 3 or 4 of the songs, my favorite ones. So so that was basically like 10 years of my life from like 2001 to 2011 is I would just go down that route.
And that would be your teenage years, I guess?
Yeah. 01 I was like 11, and then 2011 I was
and
about
you were
21.
in Vancouver at the time, because correct me if I'm wrong, you actually immigrated from Hungary, is that right?
Yes, well, Romania technically, but like right on the border of Hungary and Romania. And I was born in Romania and moved to Canada when I was 3.
And then mostly
during this period grew up in Surrey.
Okay.
So I was living in Surrey, and then even up until 2011 when I first started my like clubbing and concert experience, which we can get to next. I was 21 and I was still living in Surrey at the time, so
so you'd have to trek all the way out,
all the way every weekend.
As a lot of our friends do. So take me into, did you know what a DJ was? Did you see a lot of DJs as that 10-year period of you developing your mental knowledge? Did you start to want to get into DJing, or did you have any friends that were DJing, or what was the first time you kind of
No, actually not at all. During that time, I was in high school up until 06, and then after that, pretty much just went into the workforce and had virtually no exposure to DJs or concerts or live music or anything like that.
Still.
Just love the music. I would do whatever I could to find it, but like the concept to be like able to see these artists live, I had no idea, because I didn't have friends that were into that scene. I didn't have anybody. It was actually my oldest brother. I have a brother who's 10 years older than me. He was the one that took me to my first concert ever. And so he kind of like, that's what opened my mind. That's what like blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, this exists. this is possible.
This is
like,
real?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I like fell in love. I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to like go see these shows. Yeah.
And what show was that, if you don't remember?
So I remember my first exposure ever, I was 17. I used a fake ID. Don't tell anybody.
Allegedly. Yeah, our favorite word around here.
Love it. It was Dash Berlin at Red Room.
Huge.
Oh, very cool.
Huge.
It's funny because I have a few videos of like from like a flip phone, so they're so pixelated, bad, but like I could see it, and I could just pick out like Azim, Alia, like the Alex and John, the Alcatraz boys, as they used to be called back then. I could pick them out in the crowd, and I was like, holy shit. Crazy. I was like within standing distance of all these people who I now call my friends, fellow DJs, colleagues, promoters.
But also people who were pivotal of the industry back then.
Yeah,
they were so.
Yeah, they were part of Twisted.
Parties,
who Mazen was mentioning earlier. So that was, I was 17. It blew my mind.
Dash Berlin at Red Room. Could you imagine that today?
I have no idea who that is.
That would be ridiculous.
Sounds ridiculous. Like Red Room now is so cool. Like I can't imagine Red Room back in the day.
It was unreal, and I remember it was absolutely packed shoulder to shoulder. Like, but that was just my little glimpse. It was really cool, but I was still too young to like do it on my own frequently and stuff. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. But then there was still literally like a 4-year period between when I was 17 and then 2001, and then. Funny enough, it was my brother again. He took me. He's like, remember Dash Berlin I took you to way back when? Well, he's coming again. This time to Gossip nightclub, which eventually became Harbor and is now Enzo. So same venue, same location, but many names before.
OG.
Which is twice the size at least of Red Room.
It's huge.
It's way bigger.
I think its legal capacity is 1,000.
So how was that? So then, so you're going to these shows. You're
so that was the one where I was like, holy smokes, this is incredible. And now I'm like, well, I'm old enough to do it on my own if I want to. So my brother doesn't have to come with me all the time. I'll just go on my own. And so for the 4 consecutive weeks after that show were like instrumental to basically my nightlife career. And I should mention as well, very important, when I was standing front and center watching Dash Berlin perform that night was when it clicked, and I was like, holy shit, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like literally up until that point, didn't even know what a DJ was.
Yeah.
But like watching him perform and the way he controlled the crowd and just like was playing the music and like just my like inquisitive nature, I like knowing how things work. I was like, I want to do that. I want to figure out how that works. And I remember that night after the show, I went home and I immediately, now YouTube was a thing.
Yeah.
So I immediately went on the computer and started learning like how to become a DJ. And the videos were terrible. They were all like talking about like vinyl turntables and stuff. I'm like, well, I don't have many thousands of dollars to buy vinyls and turntables and all these things. I'm like, surely, because I know he was playing on some kind of electronics equipment. So I was like, surely there's something else. So
the original CDJs.
Probably the actual CDs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
when I was in high school, they had CDJs, and that's like in the 90s. Now they were definitely very expensive, and you literally were putting in CDs. I think they had to be in WAV files too, so each CD is like a regular CD could hold only 11 or 12, maybe 8 tracks.
You know what I mean? Chat.
Oh yeah, they're over here.
Yeah, so there's like 8 songs per CD, and you've got to write it down on the thing. And
that was it. Yeah, it was just high fidelity.
Literally swapping CDs into this thing. And I remember watching my friends play on these things. I was like, man, I really want one of those. Especially like when I was in my early 20s. But obviously you can't, like, they were still expensive back then. Like a 2 CDJ setup with the mixer was nearly 20 grand back then.
Yeah. It was wild. So how did you get your hands on equipment to learn? And did people teach you?
I had a little bit of help, but not much. A lot of it I figured out on my own, and I'll get to some of how I did that. We can get into that a little bit later. Yeah. But how I got my first decks, I mean, the stars aligned. Basically, the universe provided at that time. I just so happened to be working at Future Shop during those years. And I worked at Future Shop for 2 years.
Rest in peace.
Best Buy's still here, but we just got a new line of equipment in the audio department because they had like car audio, music and speakers and stuff. And then we suddenly, out of nowhere, just got this line of like DJ controllers.
Wild.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this? And then so the sound guy was explaining, this is a Tractor Control S2 from Native Instruments. This is a Newmark mix deck from Newmark. I was like, tell me more. Lay it on me.
Drinking it all in.
Exactly.
I'll take anything at this point.
And so I kind of observed. I started doing my research now that I kind of knew where to look and that these things exist. I'm like, oh, sweet, you can just plug this into your computer and like play digitally. Use your library. You can just literally bypass all the everything else, vinyl, CDs, everything, and just go straight to digital, which was great. So I did my research, and it was the Tractor Control S4 was the one that appealed to me the most. And fortunately, I was able to have my staff discount as well, so I saved many hundreds of dollars. So that definitely helped, because I believe even that was like $1,200 retail value when it first came in. So a pretty penny when you're 21 years old, working at Future Shop.
Buy a car, buy some decks.
Yeah, exactly. Priorities.
Let's buy decks.
Decks for sure.
Yeah.
Decks one.
Yeah.
And I bought that, took it home, and started practicing. And funny enough, DJ Ali Abji, he also, at this point, we had been friends for a little while, and he also bought his first decks. And so we kind of were like, he came over and we just like literally started playing around with it. We're like, what does this button do? What does this button do? And so we literally started like trying, from scratch. And like we'd kind of share our findings, like, hey, I figured out how to do this.
Did he get the same one as you?
No, he got, it was something. There was two models. One worked with Serato and one worked with Tractor, but it was not a Native Instruments one. It was actually it was Pioneer. It was called like a Pioneer TT1, and then the S one was the Serato one, and the T one was the Tractor one. Right. So we definitely both preferred Serato at the time, because like I don't know, they were both pretty like basic back then. Like Serato was very new, and even Tractor was still very new in those years, like over 10 years ago. But we just liked the layout, the way it worked, like how it interfaced with our mixers. So we just started learning and practicing, and over the years, pretty much any opportunity I got at a show or at a concert or whatever to like watch the DJ play, I would do that. I would just like kind of like sit on the sidelines and kind of like narrate what he's doing. And so this is where Gorgamish became instrumental, because it has probably one of the most intimate booths where you can get the closest to the DJ and watch.
Well, it's like you and it's like a phone booth almost.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Even if you're in the booth, or even if you're right beside the booth, there's literally just this tiny little thing dividing you and the setup. So
So that way you were able to get up close and personal with the DJ.
Yeah.
Watch what he's doing, trying to take any techniques that you see from him.
100%.
And then you'd go home and probably try and apply it and try and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
So when you were doing that at Gorg, this is 10 years ago, were you, because you can't necessarily just be an attendee and then be like, oh, I'm going to hang out in the DJ booth. So what was your connection there?
Yeah, so there's definitely a way up to this. So we'll start with...
I know Ali used to play there back 10 years ago.
Ali...
Abji.
Yeah, we basically started playing there almost at the same time, So basically, I'll go back to the beginning of how I discovered Gorg and how I got these connections and access and stuff. So I remember the date for this as well, May 20, 2011. So literally 4 months after I discovered clubbing and concerts and stuff. It was Above and Beyond was playing at Commodore Ballroom.
Ooh,
and so went to that show.
I probably was at that show.
Yeah. Almost everybody I tell this story to, they're like, I was definitely there. Like that was one of the...
If someone big comes through Vancouver, at that time.
This must have been like, what, 2011?
This is still 2011,
2011, I was literally going at every electronic show that was in the city. Literally every single one.
In the same shows, because like there weren't many. It wasn't like now where there's like 4 or 5 different parties, electronic music parties that you can pick from. There was usually one.
It was Blueprint and maybe one other one, maybe Twisted, maybe what's the other one?
Well, and so these days it was it was mostly Twisted or Solid. I remember Solid through parties. Solid through parties at Gossip for the most part. Twisted did them at 560.
Lance was the guy that ran Solid. And
I remember Lance.
Mandatory shout out. My apologies. Lance, Keep going.
I started going on the Fridays and the Saturdays when my friends weren't wanting to go, and that allowed me, since I was able to go so frequently, to be able to watch the DJs and observe and stuff.
As much as Gorgamish is a weird place to consider to call it a very family environment, it is very much a family environment there, because there are so many people that go literally every weekend. And it's just like, you can go to Gorg and 80% of the people you see there are the same people who were there yesterday.
Regulars,
you know what I mean? 100%. So it's like, it's very much like, once you get to know everybody there that works there, that goes there, it's all like, it's very tight knit.
Exactly. And it's Gorgamish was like still is like the hub slash nexus of nightlife, because all the nightlife people that are working during regular nightlife hours, like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., they don't often get to go to clubs, but then when they finish their shifts on like a Saturday at 3 a.m., they're done. Like their weekends are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. There is no more nightlife. So many of them would come to Gorgamish to like wind down, hang out, just listen to music, enjoy, not have to worry about bartending or
working that night.
Working that night anyway. Exactly.
Literally everybody
Bouncers,
in the industry comes.
Other DJs would be coming from their gigs. So like you never knew who you'd run into. Actually, just last weekend we had Mark Sigma, trance DJ, and Orhan Nilsson, Dutch DJ, as well as one more DJ from a different show was at Gorgamish all at the same time. So like 3 headliners from different shows around the city. We're just like hanging out at Gorg. Actually, and I'll tell this story later, but I actually met John Summit at Gorgamish way before he started his career as well. So like, you never knew who you're going to bump into, and like,
it's like this hidden secret gem of a beautiful blend of great human beings, everybody working in the nightlife industry, amazing music,
fellow music lovers.
Everybody kind of swirls and swells and, you know, ends their night there. So it's very cool.
Well, Gorg is also very famous because it is the forefront of the underground scene in the city for so long. Maybe not so much anymore, but before it was like Gorg was playing it before anybody knew about it. Gorg was on a genre or an artist or whatever before anybody in the city was listening to it. So
you know, it was that's like, a very good point.
Yeah, it was the cutting edge of the underground in our city for the longest time. There was only 2 after hours for the longest time, Gorgamish and Basement. And Basement played very different music. And then Gorgamish. They played mostly, from what I remember, was very mainstream music. It was like mainstream electronic music or top 40 electronic music, just like whatever the clubs would play, they would play kind of thing. Maybe a little bit more harder stuff, like, you know, they'd play like hard style or psytrance sometimes or things like that, whatever. But like it was just kind of, it wasn't like Gorg. Gorg was definitely very much a curated, cohesive mindset and intention with every artist that came through there. The type of music that was being played, you know, what they would play, how they would play. Like it was very like tailored, like, and it was kind of like going to Cactus Club. Every Cactus Club is the same because the person behind it's like, this is the way it's going to be, and you can't do anything outside of it.
This is our theme.
This is it.
Yeah,
you know, and there's no exceptions except for like one-off nights where promoters would do their own thing, but that had nothing to do with like Gorg putting it together. So that made them famous internationally. Like Gorg is famous internationally because
a lot of
that,
people fly in and they say, I want to see this.
Single-minded, you know, drive to be what they were,
like the vision, the best in the field that they can be, and
exactly.
So
let's take it into you starting DJing. What do you remember your first gig and how you felt leading up to it and then after? Tell me about, how did you get your first gig?
So,
and when? Because you've been DJing a very, very long time.
So I have technically 2 first gigs. One I got through a DJ competition, and it was unpaid. And the other one, well, I'll get into after, but the first one technically was so there's a group called the Vancouver Trans Family, VTF. And
I've been on their page for a long time.
They're still around.
Yeah.
When I joined, they were at like 1,500 members. Now they've got close to 10K. So they've been around for a very long time. And so the VTF would throw shows every now and then, and they'd have their VTF DJs play. And every now and then they'd have like the opening DJ. They'd have like a DJ competition, and then the winner would open the night, for example. And so there had been a few leading up to this one, and I applied, but I never got it. But then this one, you know, I hustled and got the likes or got the whatever you needed to win. And so I won that one, and definitely, thank you, definitely nervous. I remember reaching out to one of my friends who was a fellow trance DJ, and I was like, so what kind of music do you play to like open?
Yeah, right.
Because I've been downloading and collecting
Armin
a bunch
van
of trance,
Buuren.
literally trance, and I was like, well, you can't.
Headliner shows.
You can't actually play this music
What do you
at
do to
like
warm
9
up?
o'clock. Exactly.
I mean, you can, but that's a little risky.
Yeah, it wouldn't really
Yeah.
work, and it
Yeah.
would be a sure way to never get booked again. For sure.
Unfortunately, you do have to go with the flow of the night and everything like that, and to
100%.
curate a good night.
Yeah.
So, what advice did he give you?
So he told me, he's like, well, definitely. He showed me a couple examples. He sent me a few songs and some artists as examples, and told me, definitely don't play faster than like 124, 125 BPM, and like try to stick to tracks that don't have huge drops and like long breakdowns. Just something groovy, something vibey that people can like bounce to. And my set was just an hour long, so you didn't really have to carry the vibe for very long until the next DJ took over, and then slowly built it from there.
Honestly, that's great advice. I feel like people would use that even to today.
Oh, 100%. It's absolutely the advice I give people as well. Yeah.
That's amazing. No, I think even when I was starting DJing, doing my first contest, that I won as well, which is very funny.
Yeah.
But I just kind of carried the vibe, carried the groove, and that's what really did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you won that contest.
Contest, played, and that was at Shine nightclub, which is now was MIA.
Yeah. What is it now?
It became Ombre for a little while, and then now it got
it's-
bought again into something else. Yeah. It's a different name completely.
Please come back good.
Right?
Yeah.
I heard that they did some renovations, I hope, and it needed to get rid of those bottle service tables and make the dance floor bigger and just some things that make it
when
more
in doubt,
electronic.
always make the dance floor bigger. That's what I would say.
Exactly.
It isn't hard. I'm just kidding. So you got your first gig.
Shine.
Yeah.
And then by this point, I had made pretty good friends with the manager at Gorgamish, and so I had been telling him about my DJ progress and stuff, and I told him about my first gig, and he's like, I hope it goes well, blah blah blah. And so I told him, I'm like, it went great, like great turnout, like the music was great. I recorded as well. And he's like, oh, send it over.
Yeah.
And so I sent it to him, and I guess he must have liked it. He's like, how would you feel opening up Gorgamish this weekend?
Exciting.
That fast. From first gig to Gorgamish, which a lot of people hated me for back then.
Destined for the stars. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Hey, you basically live there. They're paying you're paying their rent. So,
Exactly.
They got a little cot for you in the back,
They should at this point, yeah.
I would put that one there.
Yeah, and a little mini backstory to that is also upon making friends with the manager at Gorgamish, he really saw that like I wanted to get involved in the club, and I told him, I'm like, how can I help, like promote shows, promote events? And he's like, well, anytime we have like an event or something, if you're willing to sell like tickets or whatever, like that would help a lot. I'll give you commission and that kind of stuff. So he saw that I was like really hungry to like
and who was the manager then?
Ali Sani.
Yeah, that was Ali. Yeah.
So to really contribute to the club. So I didn't just come out of nowhere and be like, hey, I want to play here, He really saw that, and this was like on a weekly basis, like every weekend, whether it was a local show or whether they had a headliner, whether it was a Friday night or Saturday night, I would go sell tickets. And back then it was all physical hard copies, and I'd have to drive around Surrey or Langley or wherever and take these tickets to people physically.
Physically
I
give
was
it to
doing
them.
the ticket game thing too back in the day.
Yeah.
I never got into that. Except
it
for
doesn't
like
even
walking
exist
around.
really anymore.
No, not really.
like street promo or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was a
we
big
all
thing
did
as
that,
well. Yeah.
For sure. So you were
Putting in
showing
your
up,
time.
you were putting in your time, you were working the clubs and being there and showing up. Got your first Gorg gig.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Oh my God. So that was really good. It was also just for 1 hour. I pretty much followed the similar formula. Pretty much from the beginning of my set to the end of my set, there was almost nobody there. The first hour at Gorg is usually pretty slow.
They're always they're kind
10...
of keeping the lineup looking a little fuller than it should be sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
at the same time too, when you're starting out, you're gonna play to no one for a little while.
Exactly. And I wasn't expecting to have this huge dance floor and whatever. But no, it worked out perfectly, and it just it was exactly what I needed, and it was like the motivation to like keep going and keep pushing for more. And then eventually I got more gigs, kind of like maybe once every month or two, and then eventually I started because Ali Sani was working for Blueprint as well.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I slowly started getting gigs with Blueprint as well, because they booked a lot of trance shows back then.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
they needed opening DJs, and so like got myself in there.
And what was your sound around that time? You keep mentioning trance, but opening groovy. What was your like, I really want to play this, or I love this kind of genre of music?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for those years, especially in the beginning, from I would say like 2011 to like 2013, it was definitely trance and progressive. Having gone to Gorgamish, I definitely got influenced with the more like darker side of trance, like Marcus Schultz kind of sounds. Like it wasn't, because there's many types of trance, just like there's many
Absolutely.
types of
Yeah,
house.
so
There's
many.
vocal
Yeah.
trance, melodic trance, like uplifting trance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed those, but like I definitely like the like darker, drivier sounds, like heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of liked playing those sounds, and yeah, like more chunky progressive kind of
Mm-hmm.
like Ad Brown and yeah, those
And how
guys.
do you feel like your sound is kind of evolved to now? Like, where do you play? What kind of sounds are you loving right now, and how do they differentiate between the ones that you used to play?
Oh my god, yeah. Well, it's night and day now. Ever since I switched from trance to house and techno, whole different world. I definitely still enjoy like the darker sounds of whatever I'm playing, whether it's tech house. I like the darker, drivey stuff. Kind of like John Summit plays a lot of those. When he's not playing his like vocal anthems, he's playing like the kind of like the stuff that he played at Shams, and that losing control track that's coming out on
Even
Friday.
at Foundations, like he would play his stuff and then be like, he'd bring it down to like some grimy
heavy,
stuff. I was just like,
pretty much techno.
Yeah, because like, you know, people were all expecting it to be just some like mainstream banger set, and he actually threw down legitimately high quality, like intentional set, and there was a lot of that driving like melodic techno, darker, progressive, like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Very
and I
much
feel like that's
so.
kind of what made him really blow up and be popular, is that he's like bridging those worlds, you know. He's literally bringing the underground into the borderline mainstream, so it's accessible to the masses, but it's also still like mature music. So so really love that kind of stuff. Whether it's tech house, techno, deep tech, minimal house even.
Was there a switch for you at one point where like I'm making a conscious decision more to play towards the house and the tech house because it's more popular, or is that just kind of like almost naturally nobody listens to trance anymore, but
No.
there are still diehards out there.
Nobody
There
listens
are.
to trance in Vancouver.
In Vancouver, true.
And that's actually not even true too. Just not the scene that we're in doesn't listen to it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a huge trance scene
Globally.
in Vancouver.
Oh, in Vancouver,
It's just
yeah.
that the scene that we're in and the trance scene don't overlap almost at all.
Yeah, and there was definitely like, when I got into it was way more popular. Like Twisted
for
and
sure.
Blueprint or Solid would have a trance show
all the time.
and
All the
for I
time.
would say 3-4 years there was definitely a lot of it going. There was definitely a conscious point, and it wasn't because it's like not popular really, because it was actually really popular. I knew that actually by starting to play house and techno, I'd actually be giving myself a more difficult time
For sure.
getting gigs and stuff, because it's so uncommon. I'm like pretty much the only place, especially that I knew of back then, that played that kind of music was Gorgamish. So I was like, if I start playing this kind of stuff, I'm gonna stop getting these Blueprint bookings and these Twisted bookings and playing at Celebs and playing at wherever. And that's pretty much exactly what started happening. Like, it didn't happen overnight, you know. You had to build your collection first, and again, I had to start from scratch. All these names that I knew over the last 10 years, now I have to start from scratch. And I mean, God bless Shazam, because that was kind of the only way I started to like learn what these songs are. But I would have to do a lot of digging, and it would take me a very long time to like build a library big enough where I can actually like play a set.
Totally.
But eventually I started doing that, and I started like going after house and techno bookings, and exactly as I thought, like, you know, I stopped getting bookings almost. Like 2014 was my last Blueprint gig until this year. So very long time.
That's a long time.
But it was a risk I was willing to take. I love the music. Like, one thing with music for me is I don't ever want to play something that I genuinely enjoy.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of DJs, and I admire them a lot, who can just play music for the sake of music.
Right.
One day they can play hip hop, one day they'll play tech house, the other play they'll be
Kind of
whatever.
whatever the crowd wants,
Yeah,
going
DJs,
with the flow of the crowd.
Just like musical DJs instead of like journey DJs, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
And hats off to them, you know, like we need those DJs. We need them to play at restaurants and
weddings,
mainstream clubs and weddings and all that kind of stuff. Like we need them. So, but I could never do that. I've tried it, but like just playing something that I don't personally enjoy, I don't get into the music, and then I feel like I'm doing the dance floor or my listeners a disservice, basically.
Yeah, because you want it to be more of a performance. You want to take them along on like something that they can enjoy and hear and listen to, and something that you're passionate about, and you can share it with them.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I endured, and I tried, and I did get gigs, not just Gorgamish. Like every now and then, there was a lot of small underground promo companies and just opportunities here and there to play. So, yeah.
And you're back on the rise now, I would say, for sure. You're kind of getting a lot of gigs. You're playing almost every single weekend. That is a lot of music to curate and download and sift through and go through, and then you play an amazing performance every single time. I'm obsessed. We loved your Neil's show. That was amazing. So
Thank you. That was so much fun. Yeah, that was one of my favorites in a while.
Yeah. So you played before Niels Hoffman. At Celebrities Blueprint Booking.
Yeah. Village Studios specifically.
Village Studios, which is the underground.
Celebs Underground. Yeah.
And so to kind of talk me through just briefly like how you set up and how you curate and where you find. You don't have to tell all your secrets because we don't want that. But how do you put together a performance kind of ahead of time? You know, I know you like to do it in the moment as well, but...
For sure, yeah. No, definitely. I definitely, if I'm searching for new music, I'm going to look for sounds specific to the gig. So if I know I'm doing like a 1.5 hour, 2 hour like opening set, I'm going to consciously look for music that would fit that sound. When you go on Beatport, you know, you'll find a lot of new releases and stuff, and it'll all be a bit of everything. But I'll specifically look for groovy, lower tempo, bouncy, whatever stuff that would fit that vibe. Then once I find like a collection of maybe 20 or 30 new songs, I'll download them, add them to my list, and then I'll start making playlists in Rekordbox. And so the playlists to me are a guide. I always improvise my sets in the spot because based on, you know, how many people arrive, sometimes the room fills up quickly, sometimes slowly. So, but I'll create the playlist ahead of time, and I generally have like a groovy playlist, an upbeat playlist, and an energetic playlist. And so basically I can move my way from the groovy to the upbeats as people arrive, and then from the upbeat to the energetic once it's party time. And and from within there, the tracks are literally in any random order, and I just pick them as I need them for that moment. And sometimes I'll play 1 or 2 songs from the groovy, and then suddenly, holy shit, the dance floor's full. And then I'll be like in the upbeat one. And I generally can't go backwards because the songs are lower energy. So it's like I really want to be conscious.
That would kind of kill the energy of what you're building.
100%,
right?
exactly. Now you've got this good vibe going, and everybody's bouncing, and now suddenly if you go back to groovy where the music is almost just like a static lull, everybody would just stop moving instantly. So
definitely.
Exactly.
So you want to keep people there, keep people
there,
interested, engaged.
Yeah, that's right. So that's pretty much it. You know, nothing too magical, but it works.
Magic every time to me.
As long as it sounds like that on the receiving end, that's what matters to me. Yeah.
So you have been in this game for so long that other people have turned to you and said, wait a second, I love what you're doing. I fell in love with DJing just the same way as you fell in love with DJing, and you have taught a lot of prominent DJs in the city, from Sivs to A-Wood. I don't even know how many more. But kind of talk me through, like, how do they approach you? What advice do you give? How do you get them started and, like, getting them on that path? Because Sivs came to you and you taught her, and now she's killing it.
She is huge.
Which
and
is
I
amazing.
honestly could not be more proud, honestly.
Yeah. Well,
I
Sivs
remember.
on in a couple of weeks. But
that was...
talk me through kind of, like, how you get a DJ started.
Yeah, for sure.
What advice do you give?
Well, first they approached me, and I have probably 3 times as many DJs asked me to teach them as I actually teach. And so I realized at a very early point that like a lot of DJs want to learn and they like the idea of DJing. But as soon as I start talking about like some of the process and what they need to do, their eyes glaze over and they're like, oh, okay. And then I never hear from them ever again. So it's like, did you really want to learn how to DJ, or, you know, did you just like the idea of it? Exactly.
Because it looks cool.
Oh, of course it does. That's why so many people want to do it. But like, it's so much work, especially in the beginning.
If you haven't spent the last X amount of your years of your life curating and downloading music
and listening
And
and,
that was
figuring out what
that
you
was
like.
what I was gonna say is that
Yeah.
one of the first things I tell a DJ is before we even do a lesson, go home and start downloading music. Like we're not even gonna start learning until you have a library of say 20 or 30 songs that you can put on a USB, bring over, and then we can start doing lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously we can use my music, but like I want them to get in the habit early on
Yeah.
of like starting that downloading process.
Yeah.
Learning how Rekordbox works, you know, and that's part of what I teach in my courses is how to even use Rekordbox, because like, you know, before you even touch the decks, you got to learn how to export music and how to
Yeah.
make playlists. And
That's step
all
number
that
0.
step 0, exactly.
A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of technology
They
and a
have no
lot
idea.
of things that go on behind
Yeah,
even
they think
before.
you could just drag and drop MP3s to USB and play.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Absolutely
work.
not.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Okay, so you've got a DJ there who's excited. They've got their little USB. They're excited to play, and they figured out Rekordbox. What happens next?
And so generally my first lesson is like 3 hours long. And the first
That
hour
is a
of that,
long lesson.
it's a pretty long lesson.
Yeah.
But the first hour of that is a PowerPoint presentation that I put together.
You have a PowerPoint presentation?
Stop! I'm
I
obsessed.
need to see this.
I want to see this.
I need to see this.
We need it. We need it. Okay, we're in class.
You know
now.
what? You know what we should
PowerPoint.
do is we should take his class.
I would love to.
Yeah, we should take it. I mean, we've already probably skipped a few steps, but
I'm sure there's more.
I
we
want
can
I
learn.
want to experience it. Now
I need
there's
to
a
know the
PowerPoint
PowerPoint
presentation. Hello.
We'll share it with all of you out at home.
Zeta says
And-
it's amazing because she has seen it.
Oh,
Yeah.
she
yeah,
took it.
when
yeah.
I taught Zeta.
Oh, right. So you've taught Zeta as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Zeta, Mazu, Francesco Rosa, the
Yeah.
Gov.
Wow.
I think I'm at about 12 official students that are like
Yeah.
working DJs.
Working
Yeah.
DJs in Vancouver right now and
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
all
They're
phenomenal.
all can call
so
themselves
talented.
professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so
Yeah, so
There's
there's
one-
this magical PowerPoint. It's called DJing for Dummies.
I'm obsessed. I need this in my
Oh my
life.
goodness. How have I known you for so long and I did not know
I didn't
this?
know about the PowerPoint presentation.
It's a secret until you take the course.
Take
but
your course.
I'll be
Okay,
happy to show you
secrets,
guys.
Secrets revealed, almost. Not
Yeah.
quite. Take the course. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the first hour. Breeze through it pretty quickly. It's a lot of information. I often send it to the students after so that they can like review it, and it goes over everything about terminology, because you got to know when I'm up there explaining the decks and I'm like, you know, move your fader up, like hit your Q button. Like I want them to know what those are.
Yeah.
And I'm not just going to be like, hit the yellow round button. You know, I want them to like understand the terminology, know what I'm talking about, what a low pass is, what a high pass, what are lows, highs, mids, you know, all the EQs.
Yeah.
So I want them to understand that. And then after that, once we're done that, we stand in front of the decks, plug in the USB, and then I walk them through everything. How to turn it on, how to load a track, do a basic transition. You know, I'll mix a track in front of them or whatever. And then, just do a few of those, some drills. And I always promise everybody by the end of the first lesson, you're going to do a transition on your own with like no help, no nothing. You know, it's usually a mess, but like at least they have
Beautiful, gorgeous, magical mess.
Yeah, exactly. You
But
remember that
probably
moment.
so
you know?
happy.
Exactly.
You know, it's their first transition. I remember my first transition.
Right?
It was
I think
horrible.
we all do. Yeah, mine was terrible too, for sure.
Just the worst.
And and then I tell them to go home, practice. A lot of people buy their first little controller or something by this point.
Yeah.
So they have something that they can practice with. And I also teach them phrasing. I'm like, before you even have decks, before you even have your own music, you don't need any of that. You can start learning how to count your beats in your head. Listen to a mix, listen to a podcast, listen to something off SoundCloud, and count your beats. I explain to them how to count them, you know, it's 32 beats in a phrase. I explain to them how to do that and just start training your brain. You can do that for hours, you know, until your ears are bleeding. So I teach them that so that, and I explain this to them before they even come to do their first lesson. So by the time we do, and I explain to them song structure, those phrasings will make sense and they can like apply that to mixing. So
That is the basics. Those
Yeah.
are the essentials.
that is the
And then
essentials.
From there, they kind of just start practicing on their own. Of course, they reach out to you. What do I do for this? What do I do for that?
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
There'll be tons of questions.
Yeah.
And now we have endless YouTube tutorials you can watch to like
Yeah.
do basic transitions and how to do stuff. So
It's
I
very
have things that I can
comprehensive.
refer them to. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so
Well, if anybody's out there looking to DJ in Vancouver, You know where to come to. Holler. So I guess the next thing that we're in right now in the phase of your career is kind of you're doing gigs and you've also got a production company. And you're kind of marrying the two with your very first show, online show that was with your production company, Triangle Productions.
Yeah.
And you put together this beautiful cinematic, 45 minutes, an hour long show?
Oh, the Lighthouse Park one?
Lighthouse Park.
Just a little over, actually an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, hour and a half. That's crazy. I remember being in that one, being like, wait, what are we doing? What's going
happening?
on? And then seeing the video later of this beautiful cinematic and your music, everything going along with it. And that's kind of where you married up.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time that you made Triangle Productions. So kind of talk me through, the inception and where that was kind of born from.
Exactly. Way back when, Triangle Productions definitely didn't even exist. This was still during pandemic time. And both Zeta and I, we didn't have jobs because as many people did during the pandemic. Yeah, nobody had jobs. Many
sitting around with a lot of time on our hands.
Exactly. So there weren't any DJ gigs either. So we always had this idea, Zeta and I, to like record DJ sets in like unique locations. And so we were thinking of some spots and we slowly put together like a camera setup. Zeta said she had some friends that had cameras and a friend with a drone. And so we brought together this like little tiny film crew basically.
Mishmash of everybody kind of all over the place. And yeah, that's very cool.
And so we picked a spot and you remember we carried DJ decks and gear down this like
oh my gosh. So Lighthouse Park, for anybody that doesn't know, is this access point is only accessible by trail. And so the trails are over stumps and under tree logs and like around rocks and stuff like that. And so we all helped and got everything out there. DJ deck, equipment,
literally
tables,
generator,
chairs.
like speakers.
Yeah. And I'm going, what are we doing? Because I was invited only by random chance. And they explained, oh, he's going to do DJing in the forest. And I was like, okay, this is really random. Like out in the middle of the day. Sure, I'll listen to some music.
Yeah.
And so what I found was this film crew and you're putting it all together. And Zeta was directing everybody. All right, drone go up, this do here. And then eventually there was a beautiful video kind of born out of all that.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was a great project. And Zeta did an amazing job editing it all together. And so, yeah. And that was the first one. I mean, and that was still in 2021, and so Triangle Productions didn't officially get incorporated until last October 2022. So definitely up until that time we were still like thinking about what we're doing, like, oh snap, we're going to be doing more of these, so like we should consider where are we going, what's happening with this. And so that's when we decided to like officially make it a thing. We came up with a name, we created a logo, and like and
so talk me through the intention behind Triangle Productions. What is
totally well, apart from making cool videos in unique places, we now see it as an outlet and an avenue to basically feature Vancouver artists, local artists, and even later on Canadian artists if we can. But our goal is to basically uplift the music scene and bring awareness to one, British Columbia and our beautiful scenery that we have here, and B, artists that are up and coming. We have so many talented artists here in Vancouver, it's mind-boggling. So having an avenue where we can feature these artists and have them, be able to find them whenever you want. Just have like one portal that people can go to and view these artists. And we're just getting started, so Triangle is still growing, and we're still doing more videos. We've got quite a few on the go that we worked on this summer. But yeah, that's our goal basically.
Lots more to come.
And we've also dabbled in some event productions. We've done 3 shows now that have been under the Triangle brand. One in partnership with the Initiative, and another one at Gorgamish. And we're definitely down to do more events in the future as well, but not our main focus for sure, because events alone are a lot of work and
so much work trying to put them all together and film them and do live shows and stuff like that.
Moving parts too that you don't have control over while you're filming, so it's like, who knows, somebody pops up in front of the camera or somebody knocks it over or something happens in the middle of the show that just like factors. Whatever. So it doesn't come out as like the masterpiece, I guess you can say, as easily.
It's like a curated show would.
Exactly.
Like Lighthouse. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, like a solo DJ feature, basically.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, where you have the freedom to move around and take the shots that you want to take, and even add drones, like you said, things like that. Yeah.
Looks beautiful. So like, what's next for you? What do you want to do in your DJ career? You're basically working every single weekend, which is amazing.
It has been crazy, yeah. And it's reached the point where I've almost been getting selective with some of my DJ gigs, because like you can't do them all. It's so much work to just do prep, and there's so many gigs that are an hour here, an hour there, you know. And as much as I would love to say yes to everything, you know, it's just if now that we're doing Triangle as well, we have to dedicate a lot of time and resources to that, as well as and so I'm definitely still playing gigs. We just announced Yodo, which is really exciting.
That's huge.
Keeping the Anjuna train going.
Yeah.
I did Niels Hoffman earlier, like you mentioned, and also there was another one, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So yeah, definitely still playing, and I think I have another one that's still in the works. But and then of course there's my regular Gorgamish residency still, which is pretty much a monthly basis. So between those keeps me pretty busy. Yeah. So just focusing on those gigs. I'm happy if I do 2 or 3 a month.
Yeah.
And
it'd be nice if these things paid a little bit more though.
Well, exactly that too, with the amount of work and energy that goes into it.
Yeah.
That's one thing we're all slowly collectively trying to work on here in Vancouver, is to balance out the DJ workload to DJ pay ratio.
Yes.
I mean, and that's something that since I can remember, you know, since the beginning of DJing has always been a problem, as DJs are one of the most underpaid pieces in nightlife. So
sure.
Because we're one of the only pieces in nightlife that don't get tips. Door people, bartenders.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't even think about that.
Door people, bartenders, coat check people, even the person that takes your money when you go to pay, the ticket scanner person, they have a tip jar.
You know, it's actually hilarious to think that every single one of those people gets paid more than any DJ does in the city.
Exactly.
That's rough.
Very equally. I was on a podcast the other day, and one thing that I was talking about is, as you're getting started in DJ industry and DJ career, it is normal for you to not to get paid for your first couple DJs. That's just, you play for free, you do it because you love it, that sort of thing.
Contest that you won.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
This exposure, you know, and one thing that I mentioned, everybody was kind of a little bit stunned by, but we have to remember that DJing and nightlife is a business at the end of the day, and we're doing it for the artistry and the love of it. But at the same time, everybody's doing it there because it's a business, and everybody's getting paid, and they're putting money in their pockets at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And that's okay. Nothing wrong with it. You should get paid for your art.
The tipping thing is really bothering me right now.
Okay,
sorry,
this
but
was
also
a TikTok. I saw a
yeah.
TikTok one time of like this DJ had like one of those like tip options, and they were just showing it around. People would come over and go tip, and then they put their card on the little scanner.
We need that.
And I was like, this is genius.
Have a little QR code at the front of the deck. People
Could you
come
imagine?
Give me $5.
Seriously,
you know?
like in front of every booth, just have a little QR code or something, and or even a tip jar, like. You know,
I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, so we can like end it after this point. But like, think about like chefs at a restaurant. You know,
they still get tipped out.
That's my point.
Heavily, yeah.
You would think
but
that
curating all
the DJ is the chef of the nightclub.
Yes,
they should be getting
We're
tipped
cooking
out.
here. What's
We're
that
cooking.
phrase?
They should
We're
be
cooking
getting
here.
tipped out.
There's food. The chefs.
If you're going to be giving them $150 for their what you think is 1 hour of work, but they're not counting the 6 hours of prep that they took before
6
that.
6 hour prep, 10 hours to learn, 20 hours to put in your time
all
and
that
effort.
stuff,
And that's the thing, and that's what so many promoters argue is when you're like, you know,
well, you're only there for an hour.
X amount is not enough for 1 hour. They're like, well, you're just playing for an hour. And it's like, no. Like that hour is 3 to 4 hours of
They
prep time.
see all the work that goes into their side of things, the promoting and the reaching out to people and everything like that. Nobody's on the DJ side going, hey, listen. Like, I feel like this was an interesting concept that came up just a few minutes ago with another show that I was at, or that I was working with, is people don't really understand what a DJ is and how many different kinds of DJs there are. Because you've got the wedding DJs to play whatever, all the way to what you are is just a performance journey club DJ. And the amount of things that both of those DJs provide are two totally separate things, but they don't overlap.
No.
They hardly ever, if any time.
I dare a club to be like, you know what? We're just gonna put on a playlist tonight and see how well that goes.
100%.
Who's gonna show up to that?
Well, they'll show up and be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
They're out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I heard.
And now your entire club, the entire thing is not making any money.
I heard. Oh yeah, you go first.
Okay, I was just gonna say, to say to that, they even experimented with live streaming DJ sets. Like they're like, we have this amazing idea. Let's say X famous DJ is performing in Amsterdam. We could live stream a show at different clubs around the world, and then people get to experience this live show virtually on a big screen, and it's going to play through the club speakers, and you're going to see the DJ.
Why don't I just set up an iPad and just like sit at home?
Right, exactly. And surprise, surprise, nobody came to the show. They weren't interested.
Nobody came
They're
to
like,
the show.
we don't care. We want to see the real DJ if we're going to come pay money to come to your venue, right?
DJs bring the energy, and energy is curated in that room.
Absolutely.
That is invaluable.
Yeah,
like,
and the DJ connects with that audience that he's in front of. So the other DJ or other audiences that are watching the virtual reason aren't connecting with anything.
No, they're not having the same drinks. They're not breathing the same air. They're not connecting with the same kind of people that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. To that point of the playlist, actually, I heard this alleged story of the Kumo kids showing up at Celebrities one time to go see a show. Celebrities Underground, and I believe they were playing a playlist. And the kids were like, the Kumo guys were like, we're DJs. We're here to see the show, but why is there a playlist? Can we plug in and play? And so they said, absolutely, why not? You know, no harm, no foul. We're not doing anything anyways. They plugged in, and they've now got a semi-permanent residency there.
That's awesome.
You know, so it's like, on the one hand, what I'm making the point about the playlist is, why are we playing a playlist? On the other hand, seeing those opportunities,
well, it just goes to show you the impact.
Yeah. Jumping in and doing that will kind of lead to other areas down the road.
Yeah.
You know,
and I want to actually add to that is I actually can't tell you how many times I've played at Gorgamish simply because either A, the opening DJ was late, or B, the closing DJ was too drunk or too tired to keep playing and was like, I need to go home. Like, I'm done. It's like 7 o'clock. The club's still open for another hour. And he's like looking around to see if there's another DJ. And they're like, yo, Gellert, you got your USB? I'm like, yeah. Like,
always prepared.
Throw me in. So like, I got a lot of practice in my early years just because I knew Gorgamish would open at 2 and I'd show up there at 1:50. And, you know, because I knew the owner, I'd come in and I just wait and just hang out and wait. And like, I would say almost like 80% of the time, the opening DJ was at least late, like half an hour to 45 minutes.
Wow.
And prior to that,
wild.
prior to that, they did have a CD. The sound tech guy would just throw the same CD in every now and then. I think it was an Eric Allen set. So it was still electronic music, fortunately, but it was like a pre-recorded set. He'd throw it in and that's what he would play. And so
unless you were there to
exactly. I'd be there and he'd be like, oh yeah, no, opening DJ's late.
So it really goes to show, if you're there, you're on time, you're prepared, always bring your USB with you.
Always have your USB with you.
I learned that early on from either you or Sivs or something like that. Always bring a USB, always be prepared. Keep it on a keychain,
you never ever know.
And that's kind of how you get into the industry, is being eager and prepared. And
it shows initiative. Like there's so many people who are hungry and dedicated, and there's so many people that just take it for granted and take advantage of it and don't take it seriously, and eventually those people weed themselves out, and the dedicated people will be taking over, and that's who you see pretty much as our prominent working.
I mean, you kind of have two examples of that right here.
Yeah.
You have the person that's doing all the work, that's dedicated and has actually made their name, because we started at the same time, actually worked at it and has played like countless gigs now. You know, and I'm just like, I'm getting into it, and I'm like, no, I'm not ready, I'm not gonna play, and I haven't fucking played.
But you do have a great library, to your credit.
But you know what I mean, like,
a fantastic library.
We're literally looking at examples of both sides of the coin here. Like,
very true.
The person who's just untapped potential that isn't putting in the work, to the person who's grinding and hustling, and you could see. One is successful, one doesn't even have a DJ name.
You know, I want to bet you though. I want to bet you though, because you're working on your stuff for so much of your time is working on your shows and your music and your production.
I mean, I have.
This is what I'm telling you, and so in 10 years' time, we're going to both be at the same time, because I'm grinding and hustling, but maybe not so much working on my music. But you're working on your music, and eventually we're going to meet in the middle. I tell you. Yeah. Mark my words. 10 years on.
Did
who's
you
listening?
not just get your first gig at Bikini Board Shorts?
I've played in front of crowds many times, but it's never been like
This is
I have to show up at this time because I'm booked for it.
On a lineup.
Yeah, exactly.
You're putting
This is a
together your
paid club
playlist.
gig.
Yeah, and it's a back-to-back, to be fair, but
Hey,
we
that's
all
still
start
something.
somewhere.
and me and the DJ I'm playing with are now battling over what we're gonna play. So it's like,
You know,
Us
if
back to back
that,
sometimes
Yeah.
go.
if
yeah,
that
I'm like, I
isn't-
want to play dark and grimy and like, you know, heavy, and she's like, well, I want to play
She's
some
a
house
perfect
music.
little,
blah, blah, blah.
beautiful ice princess, ice golden princess, and she's like, I'm
We'll
gonna play
figure it out.
house. You guys will be
We'll
great.
figure it out.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'll be there
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I want
yeah.
to witness this.
We will record that.
Witness the train wreck.
No, it's gonna be amazing. We'll go up and then we'll go down. It's like a train track, you know, up and down, up and down.
I mean,
it's gonna
you
be
know,
great.
to be fair, that's a lot of how Zeta and our sets go. You know, Zeta's set is a lot more melodic than mine, and mine is a lot more darker and drivey. And so when we
I can
play
literally,
together,
when I watch you guys play together, I'm like, that's a Dana track, that's a Geller track, that's a Dana
Yeah.
track, that's a Geller track.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I like it. It's a nice dynamic as long as we obviously stay in a similar like.
For sure. I mean,
vibe.
you guys both have such a good taste in music that it's just like, you know, like, oh, this is what's playing right now. This is what the vibe is. I know what to bring in. Both of you guys are doing that like excellently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, that's a
Yeah.
really good point to dive into and talk about is actually going back to back with somebody that you go back to back with a lot. So you guys are obviously partners. You work together. You know, both of your music's quite well.
Yeah.
But she's obviously got a different sound than you two. You guys have both curated a very, very beautiful,
Exactly.
but different, but still cohesive in a way.
Yeah.
Like, where do you guys kind of reach an agreement on music, and where do you guys differ as well?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And definitely when we're preparing for a gig, we'll do light preparation. You know, we can. Anytime we over prepare for a gig, we end up spending way too many hours, and then we show up to the gig and we end up doing none of our preparation anyway, just because
Yeah.
of how like improvised the gig
Yeah.
can be. So
Yeah.
we've learned that like having a general direction and having a theme is enough.
Yeah.
But what we know is she knows my sound is darker, so she'll find some of her darker melodic stuff, and I know her sound is lighter, so I'll find a little bit of my lighter, darker stuff.
Yeah.
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 And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that way it like kind of bridges it a little bit, so it's not too dark and not too light.
Meet in the middle.
And yeah, so
I
pretty much
personally
meet
like
in the
the
middle.
I personally like a set that has a up and down flow with that. You know, like one of the most famous DJs, if you hear their sets, they're always like this, is Above and Beyond. So if you listen to Above and Beyond, they'll always play one track that'll be like a floaty, vocally, like, you know, a signature Above and Beyond
sweet.
melodic sound, and then the next track is like a rock and like brah, 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 you know, like heavier,
Get all
like
the
darker
demons
sound,
out,
and then
yeah.
they go right back. And it's a roller coaster like this the whole time, and it's so engaging. It's
Yeah.
so engaging.
And you
So
want that,
true.
exactly.
Yeah.
You want that dynamic, because what I find with almost any set of any genre is if you stay too long in one vibe, like too much floaty melodic, you're literally, people are going to float away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And or if you have too much like freaking driving heavy stuff,
Yeah.
people are just going to get like, you know,
Yeah.
overwhelmed, bogged
and
down by all that
you
energy.
have
Exactly.
you have to give them the break and bring them back up. You know, it's the contrast that makes them appreciate both levels.
yeah, amen.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
And Above and Beyond is like the most famous version of the and the most easily recognizable and how they're doing it, because it's not like a subtle thing. They'll do the one floaty track and the one heavy fucking like banger track, and then a floaty track and a banger track and a floaty track and a banger track, and it's like formulaic. Yeah, and it's like it's like it really like and they do this for their big shows, and they do it for like the pre-shows where they do that kind of like more deep house stuff instead of like the progressive trance stuff. They do like the progressive and deep housey stuff.
Yeah, they're opening.
But
set
it'll
versus
still
main
have
line.
that same
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
You know, it's and a lot of my favorite sets do follow a bit of that. Even the sets that I play sometimes myself, I try to do that. Maybe not every track going up and down, but like it'll go like this and then like that, like 2-3 tracks up, 2-3 tracks down, 2-3 tracks. It's kind of like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to do that in my sets as
Yeah.
well. If I'm playing a 3-hour Gorgamish opening set, you know, it's not always like a steady rise, because that can often be a little too too one-dimensional for people, and it's like, even though the energy is increasing, it's kind of like a frog boiling in water. They don't notice
they don't notice it.
So
that's why the difference is good.
Exactly. Yeah. And so to quickly tap into the back-to-backs, what's also interesting is when you're doing a back-to-back with somebody you've never met before, that's also interesting because you have zero time to plan. You don't know their library. I mean, you might know who they are, or you kind of, he plays techno, but like other than that, you don't really know. And so to be able to plug in, start playing, and both of you are just like literally riffing off each other, and you're like, oh, okay, like I'm hearing what you're playing. I have something similar. It's in this folder and in this category and whatever, this vibe, and then match that vibe. And then they'll be like, okay. And then it's just like literally a back and forth, like a tennis game. And then occasionally you'll like, I feel like we should increase the energy, even without saying anything. You just play something with a little bit higher energy, and then they'll be like, well, I got to pick it up. So then they'll match the energy. And then it's a very, very interesting, it's like I always tell people, is your USB is your musical personality. And so like you're literally just riffing off each other. So
it's kind of like passing hot potato back and forth, you know, woo, woo, woo,
exactly.
But don't keep it for very long, you know, allow that other time. Allow that other DJ to shine while still kind of matching, but giving a little bit of direction. That's very hard to do. And I feel like when I was even starting out my little DJ career, a lot of the shows, or like a lot of the things I was playing is Twitch, and back-to-backs are so common on Twitch. I go to Sheen's place, I go to New Girls, I go to Pika's,
so
you know,
true,
and so like that's how I was learning, is to follow somebody else almost. And then you get a little bit of confidence to go, okay, well, maybe I'll just put out, you know, a crazier
see
song.
What happens,
see what happens. And they go, oh wow, and you're getting that confidence
and
of like,
you're inspiring each other. Oh, you played that makes me think of this, and then they played this, and oh, you make me think of that.
And that's where a lot of the magic and a lot of the fun and back-to-backs go.
Yeah, I think you and I are the ones, like as far as who I've played back-to-back with, you are the one I've played the most back-to-back with at my place, either the old place or the new place when I had the DJ set up. I think you and I are you're the person I've played the most back-to-back with, although I have played back-to-back with Danica just when we were practicing many times as well.
Exciting, we'll have to do more of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
More to come.
Especially now that your music taste has caught up to mine.
I feel like I feel like I started, and then now we're going back to melodic.
Yeah. Your music taste was definitely closer to tech house and like
housey.
Now you're definitely coming to the dark side. So
I am. It's crazy. It's crazy how your sound evolves like that.
Yeah, so. and I told you this was gonna happen. I was like, this is the story of the DJ. You start with the fun stuff, and you're like, oh, this is great, and then you listen to it so often, you're like, wow, I hate tech house. I recognize all these patterns all the time now, and they're not interesting anymore.
You just want to find more sounds within the sound, you know? Do you find that too, where you're like, you started out as one, well, you're saying that earlier, you started out as one thing.
Yeah,
now you're something totally different.
Yeah, and a lot of songs, you know, have a certain shelf life, depending on how basic they are, or how like one-dimensional. Like that's the thing about tech house, is they're designed to like make you dance, but that's about it. There isn't like, they don't take you on this journey a lot of times. They're not like really cerebral. It's just like a drivey bass line, some catchy vocals or something.
And quick high, quick down.
Exactly. And it does its
job. Sorry, what? Sorry.
Hope he's not watching.
Fisher, you there?
I mean, the only reason I bring him up is because he's always got some new song that's the most overplayed song of the year.
But they work though.
They work. They're great. I'm right in there. Yeah, I'm right in there.
Love it.
Like Take It Off. That's gonna be the most
that was
played
the one
song.
I was thinking about. Exactly.
That's the song of the summer. You know, and last year it was whatever the other one was, and the last year was like that. I'm
losing it.
Yeah, I'm losing it.
Losing it. Yeah.
So
he always comes out with that one song that you know is absolutely retarded, but you love it, and they're gonna play it, and everybody's gonna play it, and it's gonna set the club off every time you play it, and you're gonna be like this, and then next year when you hear it, you're gonna shoot yourself in the head.
Literally, You're like,
so that's a really interesting point. It's got a very short shelf life, so they have to keep producing it.
Tons. That's why tech house is probably one of the most released genres on Beatport.
100%.
And they're pushing songs out by the tens of thousands. So.
And speaking of producing, you're getting into producing as well.
I am.
Do you have anything that you could share with us yet, or stay tuned?
No, I can mention a few things. I don't have any releases yet, unfortunately. I can't be like, follow my Spotify, because it doesn't exist yet.
Soon.
But coming soon for sure. It's on very high on my list, and definitely one of the things that I've been focusing on. I spent a lot of times over the pandemic learning sound production and audio engineering and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I know my way around Ableton, and I have a few tunes. I have one that's literally finished. I just want to shop it around and put it on a label. Just want to find the right one, and then I have a few that are like well on their way. So yeah, that's kind of my fall project. Now, once summer is slowing down and we're not doing 20 day parties a month, and
my goodness, all the gigs and the day gigs and the night gigs and the other gigs and the Twitch gigs.
That's one of the things that's been like really eating my time, and probably a lot of times, is like in Vancouver, we literally had day parties all day Saturday. Then we have our usual programming Saturday night, and then Gorgamish, and then some weekends even they dare throw parties on Sunday
during the day.
So it's Sunday during the day. So you have all day Saturday. We love you, RX. One of my favorite day parties.
We just had Cameron on last weekend for
Yes, I saw.
for the
Yeah.
week, for the
no,
podcast.
and I mean I love what they're doing, and it's so unique. And
Phenomenal.
I've been always saying that Vancouver needs more day parties because we have so many patios and we have some of the best weather during the summer, but it just really kicks your ass when you're doing the night circuit, and then now you have to do the day circuit as well.
And then you want to produce on top of that.
and produce music and that kind of stuff. Usually
Crazy.
Monday, Tuesday, you're absolutely dead. You're a vegetable, and then by Wednesday, Thursday, you're almost gearing up for the next weekend, especially if you have gigs and stuff. So
preparing all your music, putting all the crates together, hauling them into the clubs. No, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
Does anybody out there have any questions? Anybody watching? But do you have any questions? Do I have any questions?
No, I think
This has been so comprehensive, and thank you for
It's been
sitting
a lot of
down
fun.
with us, chit-chatting about your experience and your history and your 10 years in the business industry, and so many more things to come.
I definitely think we need to, just for shits and gigs, maybe take a abridged version of your course just to see it in person.
I need that PowerPoint.
Because I mean, we already have a music collection, so we don't have to do that. We already know how to count. We don't need to do that. But
One,
like
two,
I would
three,
just
four.
love to
Just to
just
see
take that, just to see what. Because I've 98% of what I know I've learned on my own, just observing.
Yeah.
And I've never watched YouTube video. I've never. Anytime I've gotten somebody to come over and show me how to DJ, they're like, well, let me see where you're at. And then I show them where I'm at. They're like, oh, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the lesson, guys. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I'd still be interested to see
how a professional DJ.
Well, just somebody who
someone.
teaches successfully would teach somebody how to do it, because
Very
I've been interested in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it clearly works. He's got over a dozen working DJs in the city.
Professional working DJs, touring North America even.
Yeah, like you and I basically like kind of learned using the Force.
Yeah.
So,
I actually spent a lot of time on YouTube.
Did you?
I
Yeah.
really
No,
did.
I didn't at all.
No,
I went on YouTube to try to learn how to DJ R&B and hip hop, and I was like, I don't know how. I can't figure this out.
Gosh, I
So I
remember
just,
that week.
yeah, exactly. I was like,
you're
no,
like,
I'm not doing
he was
that.
like panic trying to learn how to play
Because they
R&B.
wanted me to play at
Pawn Shop.
Pawn Shop with them, and I'm
They're
like, sure, I can play.
Tomorrow,
No, I can't.
can you play R&B?
No.
And he messaged me. He's like, do you know how to play this genre? I said, absolutely not.
I put one song in, then I tried to bring another song, and I was like, this sounds like absolute trash, and I don't know how to do it.
Just two trains colliding into each other.
I mean, my mind is the way that I've listened to music and the stuff that I listen to, there's longer transitions. You can't do long transitions with people singing.
You're literally crossfading,
it's like,
or
and like effect crossfade out. Like
pray and hope it sounds okay.
So anyway, and the effects thing, I haven't gotten comfortable with effects anyway. So
that's a weird knob. It's a weird button. Okay, so we do have a question
have some
from the lovely audience.
New girl is in the chat. Hello, what's
New
up?
girl.
How's it going,
hello,
girl?
hello. So we've got Plastic God Official. How much time is spent producing a song? That is a huge question.
Definitely a good question.
Yeah.
It definitely takes every DJ a different amount of time, or producer.
Yeah.
Really depends on your proficiency, how well, once you've really been doing it for a while, you've got all kinds of shortcuts and tricks and ways to like streamline your process, and like presets and templates and just all kind of things to make a song. The fastest I would say I've created a song now, it's like, I would say 80 to 85% done, which is like where you'd start doing the final touches. I really just had like a crazy 10-hour Ableton session where I just like was in a flow state, zoned in, and just from like concept to that point was like 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Probably stayed up till like 8 in the morning, and then I was like, okay, I have audio fatigue. Everything sounds the same now.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
called
you
it
can't hear
there.
anything.
But it's pretty easy to pick up a song from there and keep going. But definitely a lot of my other songs, some have been over the past year just because I've been picking them up slowly whenever I have a moment. Play around with it for a little while, not feeling inspired, close it, try again in a couple weeks, you know, when I have time.
Yeah.
And so it's just been like a work in progress. But yeah, it could literally be within days to weeks to months to
Who knows?
however long you want to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, an experienced musician, producer, like I've heard of people doing tracks in an hour. You know, but like, I'd imagine that for people to do something that fast, you probably know how to play music.
Yeah, a lot of
Something
live
like that.
instruments.
Like I'll do this, and then put it in the computer and be like tune. We have a track.
Or like I watched James Hype's Moving Differently, and he always says, oh yeah, every time I'm on a plane, I've got a couple of hours, I sit and do nothing but just produce a new track, create a new track.
So
and it's like
many
bare
producers.
bones, it's still, you know, like so untreated, so untouched, but he's like, at least I have the foundation.
It's the skeleton of a foundation.
Yeah, and he's doing that again and again and again, and I'm sure with that repetition that you're getting faster and faster.
For sure, you're making mistakes, you're learning.
Yeah, putting together a whole track, whereas you're doing something which is like longer and more melodic and probably a lot more fine details than just producing a tech or a house song.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, so many DJs, especially touring DJs, will produce either on a flight or in their hotel room or something. Or they have their little mobile studio. Yeah, I see them posting stories and reels about it all the time and stuff too. So
good on them. How do I get that?
Good on them.
How do I do that?
Seriously. Well, first you need a computer that can handle it.
Oh, bless. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, well,
triggered.
Sorry.
No, I'm
Blondie's
kidding.
computer is.
Her computer is fine, but if you're gonna get serious into production, you need something
do.
beefy for your synths and
that's
for Ableton and all that kind of stuff.
Thing is you need all the equipment and stuff like that.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
John Summit's inspired me with this because he's got nothing but a tiny little keyboard and some really good monitors and a laptop. That's it. That's a studio.
Skrillex won a Grammy producing tracks on a laptop in a bus.
Facts.
So there you go.
There you go.
You know, he's one of the greatest producers of all time. And
Even Deadmau5 was saying this in a
for
recent
long time.
interview. He won the Grammy.
Yeah.
A huge ass Grammy.
Yeah.
Just through
That's
this
crazy.
bedroom DJing. So it's possible.
It's very possible. Yeah, you don't need to
Yeah.
set up like Deadmau5 where he's got a room that's like bigger than most people's houses.
Yeah.
$2 million.
Just synths and giant speakers and everything. Exactly. God knows how much it costs.
Oh no. Okay, another question from the audience. Zeta Official, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh goodness. Zeta. That is a tough question.
Tough question. She's coming in with the hard hitting questions.
Yeah,
but marriage, kid. No,
so for anybody that doesn't know, Nitecraft and Zeta are together.
Are you talking about
DJing? Let's stick with DJing. Producing.
Are we talking about music here?
Yeah.
I figured as much. It really depends, you know. Because we're doing two very distinct careers, we're building Triangle Productions and of course my musical career. It really depends kind of which one takes off the most and which one also requires the most energy, you know. Because right now Triangle is taking up so much time and so much energy, I'm not really focusing too much on production, and also because I know if I do start focusing too much on production, Triangle is going to take a back seat, and then we're just going to take even longer to release projects, and we're not going to be doing as many. And hopefully in 5 years, it's quite a lot of time. Both successful. Triangle has taken off. It's like self-managing for a good portion of it, and then I can focus on music and then do productions and maybe even tour and that kind of stuff. So
let's do it. I'd love to see you there. That'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody deserves it more.
No. Hardest working DJ I know. You're always out. You're always with people. You're always so kind, always so encouraging. Even when I was starting out in my little DJ career, you know, you're always, oh, what are you doing next? Try this, try that, give it a shot. You know, and you don't see many people like that at the caliber that you're at, of course. So hats off to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Doing my best here.
Where do I get the PowerPoint?
There we go. And on that note, you will have
is-
to contact him. You'll have to follow him.
There's one last good question, actually. This is actually a really good question. Are DJs, musicians threatened by AI production? That's actually a good
That
one.
is a very good question.
Because I was thinking about this at the beginning of our conversation, or not the beginning, but some point in our conversation where we were talking about like the difference of putting in a playlist versus having an actual DJ playing.
Yeah.
You know, I could imagine a point where there will be, I mean, this probably already exists, but where you could take, I'm going to have a bunch of tracks and I will put it into a AI software that builds a set.
And it's gonna create a playlist for you, start to finish, energy level, whatever, and you just literally click export.
And then hit export, and there's a set.
Good lord. Well, I mean, if the set is good, what's to say, you know? And if the people can't tell, and it's your music, I mean, maybe it won't even be your music. It'll download from like some catalog or something. It's really hard to say.
I think for creating sets like that, like say if you're releasing a set to your weekly SoundCloud show or something like that, you know, you put in your songs, blend it in, blah, 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 all that stuff, and then you maybe add your effects later if you want, just for spice. But I think when you're performing for a crowd, there is too much of that performance that's required for the crowd to be engaged. Like even when DJs play pre-recorded sets, like a lot of the big shows that you guys go to, sorry to break it to you, they're pre-recorded sets. Almost always. If there's a coordinated light show to
or a
that
visual show
to that show, even if it isn't technically a pre-recorded set that's being played, they are playing a live set that's literally exactly the same as every time they play it. You know what I mean? Like this is exactly where this song is coming in. It's exactly where we're blending it in. This is exactly when we're playing the next song. And yes, they may be doing the DJing, but it is a pre-arranged set.
Yeah.
You can call it pre-recorded, pre-arranged. They're the same thing. So but that's a performance.
I mean, to be fair, but that is what I was about to jump in and say. It's still a performance because they sat somewhere and developed it and thought it up and made it.
And the thing is as human beings, I still think we require the human being on the other end as the focal point of our attention. You know, I know I personally don't necessarily spend a lot of time watching the DJs from the crowd. I like to turn around and watch the people I'm hanging out with or the crowd in general and
socialize stuff. And whatever.
Yeah. So, you know, unless it is a crazy visual laser show, you know, or some sort of visual show that's interesting, or the DJ itself is engaging in some way, then maybe my attention will divert. But I don't, like at a regular club night, 9 out of 10 times I'm not really watching the DJ.
Yeah.
But that being said, the DJ is watching you, you know, and I think there's a lot of that adaptation that an AI doesn't get to see to do what it needs to do to. So in that sense,
and it goes back to what we were saying before, is that we want the human in the DJ booth.
In the booth, as a focal point for our attention. You know, because music performance and engaging in the consumption of that is a religious experience. It is a substitute for an evolutionary need for ceremony and engagement. Yeah,
being in a church and singing together,
or around the campfire, or whatever it is. Yeah. You know, where
That's
everybody's dancing and there's a shaman. It's a religious experience. We're just extrapolating that over technology and culture.
We've added really big speakers.
People will always crave that oneness, that togetherness.
It is a
being
way
led by someone, which is the DJ, is what we're at right now.
Yeah, because you're in a moment in time where you're with a group of people that are all moving and experiencing the same frequency of energy, and that's the religious experience right there. You know, you're all coming together for this. You know, and people aren't interpreting it that way, but that's essentially what it is. I'm not saying you are now worshiping the DJ. That's not what I'm saying, but you know. So I think with music production, I would definitely see that there will be many songs created by AI. You know, like create a song that feels like this, has this instrument, or maybe has a blend of this and this together, and it creates a song.
Yeah.
And I could totally, that's probably happening already.
Yeah, it does exist.
Yeah,
I've looked.
Absolutely.
It's probably happening already.
It was pretty traumatizing to see. I didn't think it would happen this fast, because I knew we'd have the AI to do images, but I was like, it's going to be a little while before it is able to do sound.
No, there's way too much music.
It is, exactly.
In the ether for it to build
and especially the amount that is being pumped out right now. What I will say, though, is there will always be traditionalists. There's always going to be those people who reach and crave and want the old way of doing things.
Yeah, 100%. That's why vinyl still exists.
Cars, vinyls, you know, we have the manual and you have the automatic.
Yeah.
And the people will go for the automatic, but there will still be those traditionalists who are like, no, I want authentic. I want somebody made this. Somebody put their hands on an instrument.
Yeah. I think at some point you can tell the difference, too.
Yeah.
You know, like the way that, you know, a song feels to you may, if it's produced by a person that is a uniquely talented genius individual, will separate from AI. But I think what AI will do is it'll take the bottom 90% of people and erase their relevance. You know, it's just the top, this separation between the top and the bottom will,
because the music
even greater.
The music is going to become so generic and artificial. Like you'll probably be able to tell a vinyl song, an AI song from a mile away. And
once we start hearing enough of it, and we'll be like, okay, this sounds like something generated by a computer.
Exactly. Yeah. Then suddenly people will just gravitate towards the more.
And I think there will be spaces where people, again, instead of becoming a programmer, you're an AI prompt generator. Instead of being a designer, you're an AI prompt generator person who is an expert in manipulating what the AI can create to create something. Yeah, you know, that'll be a new skill set, industry, whatever. Yeah, you know, and I think there will be a lot of cases where people create something with AI and then add their flavor to it, because it cuts out a lot of the menialness of the
mundane,
song creation. Set me a beat that's like this, that has this thing in it and this thing in it, and then be like, okay, we have that structure, that foundation. Okay, we'll add this to it in this kind of way. No, I don't like that. Do it again. Yeah, no, I don't like that. Do it again. Most producers, this is closer. You know what I mean? Like that kind of process. You know.
Exactly, and most producers could create a beat loop with their eyes closed. You know, so it's like something like that would only streamline their process. It wouldn't automate it. Yeah. It's not like suddenly their whole production is fake. Yeah. And just to quickly add to that, a lot of people would argue that like even the way you make music in Ableton right now, you have so many synthesizers and arpeggiators and programs that like and beat like drum machines where you could literally just like add a few samples, click go on the drum machine, and now you have a beat loop. Like that's automation right there. Yes. You know, it's
just about taking it to the next level.
To argue that now suddenly because the AI is doing it, now it's fake. It's like we've been doing it for many, many years. And most people don't even bat an eyelash. So it's like really at the end of the day, as long as you're not. Very true. Yeah.
I mean, the people consume results. They don't consume process. That's the end of the day.
That's a very good point.
So if you're able to use AI to create something wonderful, then, you know, I think with AI, once people learn how to use it properly, it'll just take the quality to another level, where that now becomes the homeostasis, like the people who separate from that are the ones that become recognized. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like all of our standards are going to raise, because it's impossible to create something that doesn't work, because AI has already created something, or can create like the base level of something that's good. So now it's like, you know, and I think that's what's happening with photography. That's what's happening with a lot of the visual arts that are happening. It's just a matter of like, you know, it's taking all the hard work and getting rid of it. Yeah. And then it's
just a matter of new hard work.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, even with photography before AI, you know, when you went from film and darkroom to digital, you still have to do all the steps, but it's like, instead of having an entire room and having chemicals and knowing how to use this machine and doing all that, and you know, and we're diverting here, but photography is my industry. People already know that. You know, when you took a shot before, in the olden days, you had to know the shot, that the result you wanted before, and then use the tools to get there. Whereas now you could just take I'm going to take this, and then I can fuck around with it later. At the end of the day, both mediums can get to the same place. Even film photography can get to the crazy levels of where digital can get photos. It's just way more work. But both mediums can get there. But the process in which you do it with digital allows you to make more mistakes, allows more trial and error, allows more even automation with, you know, things like filters, with actions and things like that. You know, it gets you to the point where you can get to the better result faster. At the end of the day, you still require the person with the talent, the vision, the taste. Like, don't produce a result and be like, oh, that sounds okay. Well,
Good enough.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
iPhone photo click, good enough. I'll just upload it to the biggest billboard of all time.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, you don't do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And trust me, there's stuff like that going on. You know, like
There is, and it's up to people to discern. But it's true, cream rises to the top, and the same is in DJ.
And again, at the end of the day,
hopefully,
the product that's consumed is the end result, not the process.
True.
You know, there is exceptions to that, but in general, it's the end result that people consume. So, create excellence, be a part of it, market it, and off you go.
Strive for it.
Yep.
Do your best that you possibly can.
Amen
With the
to that.
results that we have. I think
So
on that
true.
note, we are wrapping up our beautiful interview. Thank you for being here. Please follow
thank you for
him on
having me.
all the
That was-
socials, of all the links down below. Follow us.
Yeah.
We've got more artists and guest DJs and more conversations yet to come. He'll be back. I'll be back for another episode. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Twitch, and then uploaded on Tuesdays. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. And one last note, we were talking about this earlier before the show started. If you want to catch the recordings, get them on Spotify and YouTube. Do not watch the recordings on Twitch. They have issues.
Facts.
Watch it live on Twitch, recordings on YouTube or Spotify.
There we go.
That way
Playback.
that they,
Playback.
they won't have the issues.
Playback king.
Yep.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you all.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure.
Yep.
Good seeing so
Bye,
many
guys.
familiar faces.
Yes.
Or slash usernames.
Waters away, Slim, Bobcats.